the VIP member of the Reincarnation Guild, Hisaku, passed away at 39 due to a terminal illness, ending a life full of hardships. Betrayed and then struck by a deadly disease, he kicked the bucket without ever getting to enjoy any happiness. His luck ran out too soon. Even the god overseeing the world saw how miserable and utterly failed Hisaku's life was, so out of pity, he granted him a second life to prevent the tragedy from repeating. So the deity first ensured Hisaku would have a healthy body free from any illnesses. But the more you hear, the more it's clear that Hisaku's miserable past life was partly due to this deity's own negligence. It turns out he just wanted to make amends and ease his guilt, not out of true compassion. Thought he'd get something for nothing, almost got greedy, but in life, nobody gives you a freebie. Hisaku felt sorry, but that's a debt yet to be paid. The guy's dead anyway, struggling won't change a thing. Feeling his guilt wasn't fully settled, the deity allowed Hisaku to wish for anything he wanted in his next life. He could have wished to be the ruler of the world or the father of nature itself. But Hisaku wasn't interested in those grand ambitions, they were too much responsibility. He just wanted to be a simple farmer in his next life, raising fish and growing vegetables every day. Turns out, when bedridden, Hisaku loved a television show about idols who farm. Plus, he wasn't good at socializing, super introverted, so he just wanted a quiet place to talk to plants, take it slow, farm, and live peacefully. But that wish was beyond the deity's authority. Agriculture was managed by another god, so he had to negotiate. After some back and forth, the other god finally agreed. So Hisaku was approved to be reincarnated with a healthy body immune to disease and the power of a universal farming tool, granted by the god of agriculture. Before he could even understand what the universal farming tool meant, the deity tapped him and sent him to his new life. Opening his eyes, the blinding sunlight nearly made him go blind, and the sky was crystal clear with white clouds. After so long unable to move, Hisaku was a little awkward but excited to be free and mobile. In his past life, he lay bedridden until death, so this healthy body was a real blessing. Just thinking about being free to do what he loves pumped Hisaku up, determined to live this life to the fullest and truly deserve what he was given. First order of business: explore the terrain. Hisaku was reincarnated into a vast forest stretching in all directions, just endless woods. He wanted a quiet place, but the deity gave him a spot where no humans could even reach. Judging by his outfit, he looked like a game villager and he looked younger too. Hisaku suddenly remembered the universal farming tool skill, so he quickly tried it out. Saying the magic words balaji, the charm in his hand transformed into a hoe, not much different from a normal one. But thanks to magic, Hisaku could hoe all day without getting tired. Hard soil and roots softened whenever the hoe touched them. It really didn't take much effort to clear a patch of land. Plus, the soil turned up by this hoe was super fresh, perfect for planting. But the first problem to solve was water and food supply. After searching around, Hisaku couldn't even find edible plants, let alone a nearby stream. Here, only huge trees grew. Not a single blade of grass was visible. After a few steps, Hisaku sensed something was watching him. In this godforsaken place, wild beasts weren't surprising, so he had to find a safe spot soon. Deeper in the forest, Hisaku spotted a massive, towering tree, a true giant. Other trees were just the tips compared to this colossus. He decided to use it as a landmark. After wandering and investigating, he still found nothing. If there was no water source to find, the only option was to dig a well. Theoretically, finding water by following branches was hard, so the fastest way was just to dig straight down. Dig until hitting water, no matter how long it takes. The universal farming tool could transform into any farming implement, making Hisaku's well digging much smoother. But I could only create a few things based on human strength. Anything more complicated is impossible. The game resources are limited too. But Grandpa keeps digging tirelessly, so Hisaku happily keeps digging straight down. Fearing there's no way up, he decides to dig diagonally instead, because if he can't climb up later and ends up burying himself, that'd be frustrating. A stream of water gushed up from underground like a spring. Lucky. Now that there's water, next up is food. Even though he knew he needed it, Hisaku didn't feel hungry at all, probably thanks to the power of the Wetnun tool. But he definitely wouldn't last a lifetime without eating. Just wandering in the forest made him a bit nervous, so Hisaku turned the surrounding big trees into a proper base. The spot intended for a field was blocked by a tree. Hisaku planned to rely on the knowledge he learned from television to handle it professionally. Who would have thought the axe would cut smoother than sugarcane? A massive tree trunk was sliced in half with a light swing, crashing down loudly, making Hisaku run in all directions. Thanks to the Wetnun tool, tough tree trunks now cut as smoothly as cheese. It was incredibly slick. Hisaku imagined any farming tool, and it would appear, even if he didn't know its name. After a busy day, he finally made some wooden materials. Hisaku got so absorbed, he completely forgot the sun was setting. He wanted to build a simple wooden house based on game knowledge, but couldn't make walls or a roof with the materials he had. Afraid of wild beasts at night, Hisaku panicked looking for light, but oil lamps or fire, even matches couldn't be created by the Wetnun tool. Luckily, Hisaku was smart enough to think of a magnifying glass. Still, night fell. Without fire, he dug a hole in a big tree trunk to shelter temporarily. Taking advantage of the night, Hisaku tried his hand at carving some essential kitchen tools. Thanks to his healthy body, his eyesight was much better than his past life, partly because this world has two bright moons shining simultaneously. The next day, Hisaku continued unfinished tasks. This time, to avoid forgetting, he started a fire early in the morning, then busily expanded the land around to make a field. Using the one-nun tool didn't make him tired or hungry, but farm work like this still consumes energy, so he needed something to eat. While wondering whether to look for food, a tiny creature with two scary fangs suddenly charged at him. Hisaku was holding a hoe, and conveniently he got some rabbit meat that day. Though a bit gamey, better than nothing. The rabbit's head was even used as fertilizer to enrich the soil, down to every cell. After eating, there had to be a place to relieve himself. He originally planned an open-air latrine to blend with nature, but Hisaku just couldn't do it. It's better to make it a bit private. Peeing is an important business. Essential needs in life are now met. Finally, Hisaku got to work. While plowing, he imagined all kinds of vegetables and fruits to plant. The more he thought, the more excited he got, but he had no idea where to get seeds. He dug around until sunset, but still no seeds. This left Hisaku deep in thought. What kind of joke was this, bro? Well, he'd go to the forest for seeds tomorrow. For now, this would do. Who would have guessed that the seedbeds Hisaku dug yesterday suddenly sprouted the next morning? Maybe thanks to the one-nun tool, the seeds sprouted overnight. Not just one type, but countless kinds of seeds. Even without understanding what happened, if there are seedlings, Hisaku would definitely protect this field from giant rabbits and other beasts. He built fences around the field, then dug a moat outside. By the day, the fence and moat were completed. Meanwhile, he stored food by killing rabbits, but somehow, they all charged straight at him with terrifying fangs. It felt like they wanted to eat him. Life passed peacefully as Hisaku just watered the plants daily and watched them grow. Taking care of them like babies was enough to make him ridiculously happy. Even though I don't know what kind of seeds these are, I hope they're edible. If all I get are ornamental plants, then it's just a waste. Time to start over in the next life. A few days passed, and finally, I managed to build a makeshift hut. Just as life was settling into a peaceful rhythm, while wandering around Hisaku moat, I suddenly spotted a pair of massive dogs nearby. They looked injured and couldn't cross the moat I dug, so Hisaku built a bridge for them. Just in time, I had some wild boar meat I didn't know how to handle. Luckily, those dogs ate it for me. Hisaku still can't figure out why first the rabbits, then the wild boars kept crashing into him. After watching them for a while, I realized the female was pregnant. Right after they finished eating, the female went into labor. It was my first time seeing this, and I had no idea what to do. I just let the dogs into the hut I'd prepared and lit a fire outside to keep them warm. I slept under a tree. The next morning, I found the mother dog and her puppies safe and sound. Hisaku's boring life suddenly had new furry companions. Since they got used to living in the hut, Hisaku let them have it. I'll build a bigger house next, based on the experience I've gained. I named the puppies Yuki, and the dog is Kuzo. When the puppies started running around, it was also time to harvest the vegetables and fruits. Although they looked a bit weird and smaller than I expected, the taste was exactly the same as in my previous life, no difference at all. Farming is busy work, but honestly, it's so much fun. There's still a lot to prepare, but Hisaku is really enjoying the life he's chosen. Episode 2. After throwing Hisaku into the next life, a while later, the god Kia suddenly remembered him. Out of curiosity about how he was doing, he touched Hisaku's hair and comforted himself that it was reasonable. After all, the job of God is to save souls. Sometimes a little mix-up is inevitable, but a little mix-up means a whole lifetime for the person. It's no fun in the afterlife. This god realized Hisaku's tough life in his past was actually the punishment for a sinner, but because he got careless for 180 minutes, he mistakenly gave Hisaku a different fate, which gave him a life that was anything but happy. But the heavenly law is that once a life begins, it can't be interfered with. So at least to make up for it, he gave Hisaku a second life full of buds. But he messed up right at the most important part. The forest where he threw Hisaku is full of dangerous monsters known as the Dead Forest. No one dares to enter. Being thrown here to farm for survival is basically a punishment, right, old man? The god suddenly felt something was off and wanted to call Hisaku back to heaven, but that would break the rules. So let Hisaku die down there, and the apology will come later. Hey. Meanwhile, down in the mortal realm, after some time using the one-nun farming tool, Hisaku realized crops could grow on their own without seeds. All he had to do was till the soil while thinking about the plant he wanted to grow, and the next day, that plant would appear. To test this theory, Hisaku tried growing bean sprouts. Because they sprout quickly, he noticed immediately. And sure enough, just as he predicted, crops grown with the one-nun farming tool develop super fast. Sometimes they grow so crazily that Hisaku can't control them. Now, armed with farming knowledge, he can handle more situations and care for various plants that he wouldn't have understood in his past life. But to gain that knowledge, Hisaku had to learn from many mistakes, even though God played a cruel prank on him for a whole painful lifetime. But since the god gave Hisaku the dream life he has now, he carves statues of God and the agriculture god to worship beside him. Though his current life is still very primitive, Hisaku enjoys it immensely. Every day there's rabbit meat to eat, vegetables picked fresh from the fields without pesticides or preservatives. They call it hot pot, but honestly, it's just boiled food with no real flavor at all. But eating it often, Hisaku got used to it and became way better at cooking. After growing staple crops, Hisaku wanted to try planting fruit trees outside the fence. If successful, the food supply situation would improve a lot. Days passed peacefully like this. Without Kuzo and Yuki, life would be boring to death. Also, these dogs help him move through the forest without getting lost. Thanks to that, the scouting range was greatly expanded. Finally, he found a stream a super far 30-minute walk from home, no joke. Upstream, there's an insanely huge waterfall. Hisaku wanted to draw water back home, but that's too exhausting, so he postponed it. First, he had to build a latrine nearby. Sharing heartfelt moments in such a poetic, romantic place couldn't be better. He also tried turning his all-purpose tool into a stroller to walk the dogs. Using the all-purpose tool, he didn't get tired. It helped Hisaku move freely and handle construction work at the base. He expanded the fields further and planted various vegetables for cooking, like rapeseed for oil extraction, rice for cooking and grinding into flour with many uses, and sugarcane for sweets. By the way, the bean sprouts had grown into beans. Time passed faster. The dogs running in the fields made it hard for Hisaku to tell how long he'd been reincarnated here. He saw distant mountains already covered in snow, even though it wasn't dark yet, and he started feeling cold. All signs pointed to winter approaching. Hisaku tried some cold-proof measures, like using giant rabbit skin, but the smell was too bad to handle, so he just stayed in the hut and lit fires. Besides, he had to stockpile firewood and food. Suddenly, the dogs barked loudly at something. Hisaku had to check it out. It turned out to be a giant spider. The spider suddenly pulled out a glove that looked insanely high-end, blinding him. It could even embroider patterns. Turns out the cloth was a bribe for Hisaku to let the spider build a nest on the giant tree at the base. Not just fabric, the spider also gave him clothes and processed the rabbit skin he planned to throw away. Suddenly, having warm clothes for winter made Hisaku pretty happy. Since the spider arrived, his quality of life improved a lot with the presence of fabric. Civilization clearly advanced. So Hisaku named the spider Jabuton and imported it into his base. Finally, winter arrived. Though it was cold outside, Hisaku was chill as usual, having prepared in advance. The dogs huddled together in the hut, and Jabuton was hibernating, so only Hisaku was alone. He suddenly remembered the last time he talked to someone was a long time ago. He feared that at this rate, he'd forget how to talk altogether. Before long, the cold passed, snow melted, and spring began to show. Hisaku started noticing the dogs acting very differently. After some time away looking for mates, the pack returned with their partners. Not only that, but after one winter, Jabuton had given Hisaku many tiny baby spiders. Every family grew larger except Hisaku, still all alone, making him a bit jealous. With the population growing, Hisaku had to expand the fields, or the whole pack would starve. Suddenly, he got an alarm from Jabuton warning that something dangerous was coming. The dogs acted strange. Hisaku grabbed a hoe and followed them into the forest, where he found a white-haired girl with messy hair and torn clothes, shivering under a tree, looking terrified. No doubt, she was a little girl. The beasts Hisaku raised scared her so much she couldn't fight back, just trembling. He didn't know the full story. Hisaku couldn't ignore her desperate plea. As he approached to help, the girl bit his neck, then suddenly transformed. With a boom, she became a young woman about his age. Before Hisaku could understand, the dogs tossed her meters away and attacked, forcing Hisaku to step in and stop them. Once again, the young woman reverted to her child form, sitting silently in frustration. After talking for a while, they confirmed she meant no harm, and meeting them was just a coincidence. She just wanted a bit of blood to regain her strength, not to hurt Hisaku or anything. She was so exhausted she couldn't maintain her form or clothes, but Hisaku's dogs attacked her because she chased one of their pack first. Still, Hisaku treated her kindly, letting her suck blood once more, which moved her deeply. With a strong body, no matter how much blood was drained, he didn't feel a thing. After regaining her strength, Hisaku took the girl to visit his base. She never expected a place like this to exist deep in the forest. Everything was food she had never seen before, so Hisaku let her try some. Hisaku also showed her around the entire field he had painstakingly built. She stayed until evening and introduced herself as Du, a vampire race, but since this world was strange, Hisaku wasn't surprised. She came to this forest to research various herbs. Another noble wanted to steal her research Chungor. When she fled, he sent people to chase her, so she came to this dead forest to hide and study the plants here. Thought she was doomed, but unexpectedly met Hisaku. After talking for a while, it turned out Hisaku didn't know any rumors about this forest, but he didn't really care. Hisaku only cared about inviting Du to stay here. Suddenly, having a place to research was too appealing. Du planned to stay a while, but Hisaku knelt down, begging her to stay forever. She was totally confused, So awkward, she could die. No matter how much she protested, seeing Hisaku's determination, she agreed. It was just too sudden, so she felt a bit shy. Besides, isn't that basically a proposal? And so Hisaku's life got a new companion, making it more interesting and adding a little wife. From episode 3, after Du arrived, Hisaku's quality of life improved significantly. Thanks to her magic, the toilet room that was pitch black now had light day and night. Civilization made a breakthrough insane. Even though it was just basic magic, it left Hisaku wide-eyed and stunned. Even the seasoning problem that Hisaku struggled with for so long got solved in no time thanks to Du. It turned out what Hisaku had been searching for all this time was right in front of him. Just a few centimeters below the ground was a layer of very salty white soil. Boiling it gave Hisaku salt to eat with his meals instantly. He had been stepping on it all day without knowing. Today was like every other day, a very early morning. Hisaku was full of energy, but Du was yawning non-stop. Who could blame a vampire for not wanting to wake up early? That's just cruel. Hisaku took Du to find the orchard caretaker. Hisaku had planted many new kinds of trees since they took longer to grow than vegetables. Better to plant all at once and enjoy the fruits later. But even that wasn't enough. Hisaku planned to plant peaches, tangerines, and chestnuts too. While talking, he suddenly remembered Dufa's delicious herbal tea, so Hisaku wanted to plant green tea so they could have more tea to drink, like oolong and green tea. Suddenly, Jabutan's warning knock sounded. Both rushed to check and saw the dogs surrounding another person. This time it was a winged young woman, apologizing profusely for attacking the dogs earlier. Because she could fly, Jabuto's spider web had bound her tightly, preventing any resistance. This scene looked familiar, so Hisaku, experienced in dealing with this, wasn't too awkward. As soon as she was untied, the winged girl immediately used magic to heal all her wounds. Hisaku couldn't help but marvel at the miracle of magic and excitedly showed Du. Unexpectedly, he saw her sneaking away from the scene. Seeing Du, the winged girl immediately shouted loudly. Turns out she came to take Du back. Hisaku had no choice but to invite her to his home to talk properly. The story was too long, so Du decided to skip the explanation to avoid exhaustion. The episode is 24 minutes. Where's the time to explain everything with so many things going on? The winged girl knew Du from before, but this was Hisaku's first time meeting her. Du's answer shocked her to the core. I'm sitting here writing and just as shocked. Du called Hisaku her husband, and he was just surprised, not offended. So before even one episode, no flowers, no official confession, the girl doesn't get a confession but later meets him just for hugging and kissing. No love yet, okay? The winged girl's name is Tia, from the angel tribe, but not servants of gods like other stories. Her tribe is just a rough warrior tribe. Tia is chasing Sue because she's wanted for causing chaos in the town. Du always researches suspicious drugs, and whenever trouble comes up, she just blows things up. On top of that, she even attacked a noble, making him lose all his pride. But Du stubbornly insists that everything was just an accident, and hitting that noble was because he was just too annoying. Turns out Du came here to run away. Tia just simply because she's stronger than her. Although they constantly argue, Hisaku can see there's a subtle closeness between them. Tia was really surprised to see Du admit she was weaker and even take the blame herself. It all happened after facing Hisaku's pets. Du finally understood what true helplessness feels like. Tia clearly came to capture Du, but after hearing her story, she decided to stay in the forest with her. Hisaku didn't object either because when his wife says something, he listens no matter if Tia agrees or not. Du was still excited to take Tia to see their vegetable fields. Du really loves this place and introduced it with great enthusiasm. Even Rabu became a sightseeing spot, but seeing that giant spider, Tia immediately snapped out of it. Despite Tia nearly fainting, Du still invited her to help harvest vegetables with them. The main goal was just to have more hands to ease the work, nothing fancy. In the end, Tia still didn't get why a warrior tribe member like her was digging soil and farming, but Du didn't care and just dragged her along. After showing Tia how to harvest, Hisaku showcased his cooking skills so she could taste how good fresh veggies are right from the garden, and she admitted it was insanely good. By day's end, Tia was covered in mud and dirt, and the harvest was quite substantial. It looks nice, but harvesting is exhausting. Totally wiped out. That night, Tia ate strawberries for the first time and got super excited. She started loving farm life more. She'd never thought farming could be this chill. Seeing Tia was caught in the trap, Du immediately manipulated her psychologically and convinced her to stay. From a simple life of 2, it became a life of 3. Every day, the 3 happily farm, harvest, and eat what they grow, more relaxing than retirement, max chill level. Tia suggested planting more strawberries, but Hisaku worried it'd be hard to harvest all before they ripen. Even though the 3 work all day, they're still swamped with tasks. Hisaku remembered today that Kuzo and Yuki's family is now in the 3rd generation and soon will bring home partners again, so that small hut isn't enough for the dogs, and Hisaku built a bigger area next to the fruit garden for them to play. Meanwhile, Jabutan's kids set off with the wind, but some stayed behind to keep Jabutan company. Tia flew out a bit, leaving just Hisaku and Du at home. A few days later, Tia returned with many Ep tribe maidens. After a self-introduction session, too many to remember, they explained they all came here following Tia's suggestion. One stepped forward to plead with Hisaku to let them live here together. They originally lived far to the north, but 200 years ago, their land was destroyed after getting dragged into a human war. Since then, the tribes scattered everywhere. These maidens have been wandering, searching for a place to settle. They've been nomads in the forest, but without a home, they can't grow their population. Just then, Hisaku's fields needed more workers, so Tia begged him to let them stay. Du also pleaded, so Hisaku had no reason to refuse. But when introducing the pets they'd live with, the Ep girls kept fainting from the sudden increase in people. Hisaku decided to build a new place. Leah's group wanted all 7 to live together, so he would help build a big enough house for them. First, digging a moat and building a fence. Then adding a dedicated bathroom and trash area. The Ep handled the house building skills, so Hisaku let them take charge. 10 days later, a huge mansion was completed. It's way better than Hisaku's hut. But that offhand comment made Hisaku feel so sad he wanted to cry hugging his pillow alone. But there's no way I'll give up. I've secretly learned the Ep clan's house building technique. Very quickly, everyone got used to life on the fields. Now there's no worry about the harvest anymore. Hisaku can expand the fields as much as he wants. After talking more, we realize the Ep clan lives in harmony with nature but never underestimates it. By the way, to help out here, Leah volunteered to work on mining and metal forging. First, she wanted to build an iron furnace. Right after, following the group's guidance, Leah and Hisaku built a forge, then put coal and iron powder inside and heated it up. Then they forged the molten metal. The final piece was incredibly detailed. After all, they've been wandering for 200 years. If they couldn't learn these skills, what's the point of living? They know how to do everything except settling down and reproducing. The Ep girls even know how to bake. That flour finally got used. Freshly baked bread. Truly unlucky. Now Hisaku notices whose forest they're actually living in. Du guesses it belongs to the Demon King, making Hisaku shiver. But Du reassured him, so he put that thought aside for now. After sitting and talking through the night, Du and Tia both concluded Hisaku is way too carefree about this world. Probably because he's lived in the forest too long, he doesn't know anything weird. Episode 4. On a beautiful morning, just as Hisaku took the national emblem to the fields, Rabutan blocked his way. His eyes sparkled like LED lights, pointing to a huge tree trunk where a queen bee the size of a rice basket was tangled tightly in spider webs like a tet rice cake. Lying flat on the ground, her big eyes looked at them pleadingly. Rabutan looked at him calmly as if discussing whether to cook noodles or pho for breakfast. He was debating whether to release or keep the queen bee. Hisaku hesitated, afraid one sting from the queen would swell his hand like a chicken egg. But seeing the helpless queen with no hint of aggression, he sighed and decided to keep her as a pet. So from pity, Hisaku moved on to making full use of her. Not only did he spare the queen, but he also built a fancy beehive right next to the fruit garden, the kind of place where free food is available, so just make honey. In less than 10 days, the worker bees finished building the hive. The queen bee was plump, but the worker bees were still tiny. Hisaku looked at the honey-filled hive, quietly calculating how to harvest honey without getting stung. Tia suddenly appeared but ran away like she never existed the moment she saw the bees. Hisaku just shook his head and planned to plant more flowers near the house so the bees have enough pollen to make honey. While he was busy thinking about how to extract honey, Hisaku suddenly remembered the plan to dig a canal to bring water from the stream. Hisaku wanted to dig a huge hole with the idea of channeling water from the stream. That said, he still didn't know how to build the water channel, because the stream was quite far from where they were. Thinking about the water channel, Hisaku immediately thought of stone, but there were only trees around, so stone was hard to find. If made of wood, the long water channel would leak a lot. Finally, Hisaku thought of hardening the soil like concrete, so it should work. He used the dirt from digging the water reservoir to make the water pipe. Super convenient. Everyone started building a water pipe from the waterfall. The foundation was made of soil. Then they began installing the water channel. He asked the Ep girls to do simple tasks while he focused on reinforcing the joints and foundation. Thanks to the Ep girls' help, the water channel was completed much faster than expected. From now on, they didn't have to climb up and down the well anymore. Fetching water for the fields would also be much easier. Originally just to bring water to the fields, who would have thought this water channel also brought back a bunch of fish? Suddenly, having food delivered to your mouth, who wouldn't slurp it up? That'd be dumb. Just praised rabbits for being fierce. But the fish seemed normal. Hisaku almost got his head bitten off by a giant fish lunging at him. Lucky he's the main character, so that fish went straight to the chopping board. Watching Hisaku grill those fierce fish, Du and Tia were stunned, not sure if those fish were even edible. The girls also hid behind the tree trunk, too scared to eat together. They had to let Hisaku try the poison first. Only if he didn't croak would they dare to eat. Hisaku, still clueless, calmly put the fish in his mouth and remarked that it actually tasted a lot like salmon. Du and Tia, after trying a bite, had to admit these fish were pretty damn good. This fish dish was so beloved that this time they finished the whole batch clean. Afterwards, Hisaku wanted to salt and preserve it for longer storage. Hisaku wanted to try rice farming since there was now a water source. He wanted to see how rice fields worked. No sooner said than done. Hisaku immediately started digging the field and flooding it with water. Then he guided everyone on how to plant paddy rice. Leah's group was a bit clumsy but quickly got the hang of it. Rice planting progressed very smoothly. For pest control, he entrusted Jabuton's kids to handle it. Probably thanks to the power of the multi-purpose tool, the rice ripened in the blink of an eye. When Raku guided everyone to harvest together, thanks to that, it was done in no time. Then came the drying step to remove moisture. Once dry enough, the rice was threshed. Thanks to the multi-purpose farming tool, this step was also very easy. Next was using a rack to remove all leaves and straw, then grinding to peel off the husk. After that, pounding to clean the rice bran. It took quite a bit of effort to process this dish, you know. Still, it wasn't edible yet. They had to cook the rice first before eating. The cooking phase was also complicated, so 7,729 steps were cut out. After cooking, Hisaku shaped the rice into balls and let everyone enjoy these rice balls. As expected, it was delicious without question. White rice combined with salted fish filling was just perfect, but everyone ate so enthusiastically, they barely left any for Hisaku. In the following days, everyone was excited to go plant rice. Every time they had to clean the mud themselves, so Hisaku wanted to build a hot water bath for washing. After thoroughly explaining how to build and configure the steam bath, the girls immediately started working on the project right away. The work progressed faster than expected. Hisaku suddenly worried. Would it be okay if the water they used just flowed back into the stream? Tia said if he was worried, just use slime. It's nature's cleaner, specializing in eating waste and animal carcasses. As she spoke, Tia flew off to catch some to show Hisaku. Hisaku then tried releasing slime into the drainage pipe leading to the toilet to purify everything they flushed out. The water source issue was solved. Now all that was left was gathering firewood to light the fire, and the bath setup would be complete. Hisaku suddenly noticed a mushroom growing on the pile of wood since they arrived. Afraid it might be poisonous, he didn't dare eat it. So he started cultivating some mushroom types he knew. He even forgot about preparing the bath, which wasn't ready until late afternoon. Hisaku intended to guide everyone on using the steam bath, but it was too complicated, so Leah suggested he demonstrate it himself. So Hisaku awkwardly had to practice while guiding them through every detail one by one. It had been a while since soaking in hot water, so the moment he got in, Hisaku was in heaven, forgetting the world. By the time he snapped back to reality, everyone had already stripped and jumped in to bathe together. You even encouraged Hisaku not to be shy. There's nothing to be shy about. Oh, if those two aren't shy, then the shy ones will be the ones watching us. The next morning, Hisaku's mushrooms had sprouted. Long live the multi-purpose farming tool. Kuzo's group suddenly brought back 5 new girls whose names all started with the letter La. Their situation was similar to Leah's group, so Hisaku welcomed them into the village too. And if that's the case, they had to rebuild the house. This time it was a full-on mansion. Girls were very optimistic, gathering more and more, confident their tribe would soon revive. But how exactly? That was still unknown. Hisaku sighed, looking at the growing crowd. Hisaku and the others were stunned, frozen for 5 seconds standing before the new house the girls built. Damn, this is insanely huge. It's a full-on mansion now. This house even had a basement, and it had to be supported by huge, badass wooden pillars to reach this scale. The new house structure was quite similar to Leah's group's house. Hisaku's room was designed much more spacious and luxurious. Du and Tia's entire room was also redesigned to their liking. Hisaku suddenly got curious about a locked room and excitedly opened it to check inside. Inside, he saw a love bed. Hisaku pretended he hadn't seen anything and quietly closed and locked the door again. This house is really amazing. Everyone gets excited when they have a new home. Next up was decorating. Hisaku placed god statues around the house. He even made statues of the Kuzo group and placed them at the entrance of the new house, surprisingly looking pretty good. Today, Hisaku wanted to try cooking curry with the ingredients he had grown. Since they hadn't eaten all morning, Du and Tia came into the kitchen and saw Hisaku preparing to show off a new dish. The two girls immediately got curious and approached, saying curry isn't too hard to cook but it needs depth to get it right. Simply put, the sauce is pretty difficult to make. Then Hisaku took Tia and Du to a strange field he had never mentioned before. Hisaku had planted many types of plants there that looked very exotic. Many of these crops only grow in snowy regions. Luckily, with his Wenun tool, he could grow all kinds of plants sensitive to seasons and climate. After briefly introducing a variety of spices to Tia and Du, starting with dill and turmeric, he asked Tia and Du to use magic to instantly dry the turmeric. Super convenient. As for cilantro, Hisaku said it's a plant with a very distinctive smell, but for hellhounds like Kuzo and Zuki, they absolutely hate this smell. Just a sniff, and they'd bolt like crazy. This scene immediately became an important reference for Zu and Tia. Who would have thought there's a plant that can repel the terrifying hellhounds of the dead forest? Of course, Hisaku remained completely clueless about what was going on. After gathering all 10 types of spices, Hisaku looked around and realized Tia and Ju had disappeared without a trace. So Hisaku had to start cooking the curry alone, with Leah helping him. After witnessing that scene, Zu and Tia went into the research room and forgot everything else, so only Leah was free to assist Hisaku in cooking. Hisaku didn't hesitate, and immediately began guiding Leah step by step. First, put a bit of fat in the pan to heat, then add rabbit meat to lightly cook. Meanwhile, Hisaku ground all the spices except dill seeds into powder, then used the juice from the meat in the pan to sauté the dill seeds until fragrant. Then add onions, carrots, and so on to stir-fry together, then add cut potatoes and stir-fry until lightly cooked. Next, add the spices and meat and stir. The final step is adding water. Simmer until the meat is tender, but Hisaku felt like something was missing. After thinking hard, he realized that while focused on the curry, he forgot a very important side dish, naan. Since there were quite a few people, the two immediately started making it. After a quick tutorial, Leah learned fast, but since they didn't have an oven, they used the bottom of the pan as a makeshift griddle. So focused on cooking, no one noticed they were being touched by the other girls who were messing around with their hair. On top of that, the hellhounds also got involved, eavesdropping on Du and Tia. After studying cilantro, they passed by and saw a crowd gathering. Plus, the smell of food wafted through, making Tia a bit hungry. After some fumbling, the bread was finally grilled. Served to everyone, cooking just one dish took the whole damn day. This was the first time everyone here had curry, so they were still very inexperienced. After seeing Hisaku eat with great appetite, they felt safe to try it. Sure enough, whatever he cooks, tastes amazing and addictive. The more they ate, the better it got. Everyone went through bowl after bowl. Even though it was delicious, the hellhounds would always run away as soon as they smelled the curry, leaving Du very puzzled. The curry was very well received and was gone in no time. Although cooking was exhausting, seeing everyone enjoy the meal made Hisaku happy too. And just like that, the day ended. Winter is approaching. When it snows, everyone has to stay indoors like hibernating, so they must prepare plenty of ingredients and firewood for the whole winter. When it's cold, raw butane will hibernate up in the trees. Hisaku had her act as a cushion first, so this winter he won't have to worry about the cold. Sun still forces Leah's group to keep training and crafting small tools even in winter. Du and Tia also went out of their way to store up food supplies. As for the Kuzo dogs, hunting in winter is tough, so they have to stockpile a large amount of food to make sure no pup dies of starvation halfway through. Even Raku had to figure out how to preserve vegetables. First, put them into boxes, then cover with cloth, and let the snow pile on top naturally. This method is called snow preservation. Seeing Du and Tia use magic made Hisaku happy and eager to try it himself. But as expected, he had no magic at all. Even knowing it was impossible, somehow he still felt that if he practiced long enough, he might actually gain magic. That night, chatting with Du, Hisaku sighed that everyone else was so skilled. Only he knew how to farm and cook. But Du didn't have magic. Hisaku spoke about himself like that. The one who's truly skilled here should be him. No one else managed to settle in the deadly forest so quickly, it's no small feat. You could say Hisaku is the only one who pulled that off. Even so, Hisaku wasn't that excited, but he did smile. Finally, winter arrived. Snow began to pile up. With lots of time indoors, Hisaku got bored and started making entertainment games. First up was chess. Classic chess, plus sliding chess variants. After briefly explaining the rules to Tia, Leah, and Du thought the rules were too simple but got taken down by Tia's single move, so strategy was definitely needed. Missy. So Du immediately challenged Tia. They hadn't finished their match since episode 3, so they decided to settle it with this chess game. Both of their fighting spirits were blazing, but Du couldn't beat Tia at these games. No matter how you looked at it, White was winning, but Du refused to accept it and knocked the whole board flying with a slip of her hand. And Tia wasn't surprised by Du's antics, just holding her head in exasperation. Du thought that would end the round, but Tia used magic to restore the board to its original state, making Du throw a tantrum and demand a rematch. Hisaku gave up and went outside to check on the others. The girls made him explain the game until he understood it, but even the Kuzo dogs got the rules and actually played chess with each other. Hisaku hadn't thought of that. They looked cute, but their attacks were pretty fierce. Du saw the Kuzo having fun playing and wanted to join, only to lose every time. But with the Hellhounds, she didn't dare mess around like with Tia, so just hugged her knees and sat there doubting life. Hisaku also joined, teaming up with Tia, Leah, and Kuzo. He thought Kuzo wouldn't understand sliding chess's rules since it's more complex. But no, even Kuzo and Leah played better than him. One corner had a guy hugging his knees from not being good at brain games, so Hisaku switched to bowling. This one can't be lost easily because it's simple, so bowling was very popular. Time flew by so fast, the snow melted, and winter ended. The weather was much more pleasant, they could start farming again. But just as Hisaku finished speaking, Jabutan's alarm bell rang. He and the others ran outside and saw a huge genetic monster approaching in the sky. Episode 6. The new monster roared once, and its power already looked intense. Its hair flew wildly. Without a word, it immediately breathed fire toward them. Luckily, Tia and Du cast shields just in time, otherwise, the whole group would have been wiped out. But the shields only protected part of them. Some spots outside the shield still got burned by the flames. Leah immediately rallied everyone to run and put out the fires. The situation was getting worse. They couldn't run because the monster could fly. They wanted to attack, but its magical defenses were too thick. Just as Hisaku decided to face it head-on and resolved to call Anxi's rain to help protect the place, a spear appeared in his hand. But where it came from or why he had it, he didn't know. Now wasn't the time to think. With this power, Hisaku only needed one strike to break through the monster's multi-layered defenses. Its wings were also torn apart by the spear, but that still wasn't enough. Hisaku immediately followed up with another strike. To everyone's stunned disbelief, Hisaku sent the monster back to the West Heaven in just over a minute with only 2 moves. After the battle, part of the field was burned by fire, but the houses weren't affected at all, so Hisaku led a few people into the forest to find the monster's body lying twisted in a corner. There are many like this, some places have more, some less, but seeing one this huge is rare. Hisaku suspects that this monster might have been deliberately sent by that AI, but Tia thinks if it was controlled, it wouldn't have come alone. It's likely just a wild gen monster. If that's the case, then good. Hisaku sighed, saying the appearance of gen monsters here is just a rare incident. If so, then let's carve up this giant lizard and eat it. It turns out the meat of gen monsters is rumored to be insanely delicious. Legend says a king once sent an entire army to hunt one in its lair, just to taste the meat, but that army got burned to a crisp and eaten alive. After telling the story, the pan-seared gen monster meat was ready, looking absolutely mouth-watering. Not only that, Hisaku used every part of the monster to cook, not missing a single dish. Thigh meat was pan-seared, tail meat was stewed with vegetables. Trying it revealed that despite the monster's tough appearance, the meat was incredibly tender, so delicious it left Tia speechless. While everyone happily enjoyed this divine feast, Du focused on the power of the spear Hisaku used to kill the monster. That power was something even Tia couldn't block. One throw pierced through 3 layers of the gen monster's barriers. There are few in the world who could stop that. Du thought, lucky the first thing she met was the Kuzo group. If it were Hisaku, it would have been game over from the start. Meanwhile, at the Demon King's fortress in the Ma Kingdom, the 4 heavenly kings were in a panic. It turned out the gen monster from this morning was sent by them. They received news that they had to mobilize an entire force just to kill that monster, yet it was destroyed by a spear emerging from underground. One of them was so terrified he couldn't face such a terrifying opponent directly. One wanted to fight, but the others were too scared and wanted to quit. What's the point of fighting? Scared shitless and ready to log out early. Now, in Dojami's lair, a rusty dragon was also discussing this morning's events. Dojami wondered if Hisaku's spear targeted him. Would he log out or barely survive? Just joking, but the subordinate actually dropped dead right then, no joke. Then warned Dojami not to mess around and make an enemy of the guy in the middle of the forest. Meanwhile, Hisaku still didn't know anything. Early morning, he went to check the field as usual, thinking the gen monster meat was delicious but still missing some grape wine to sip alongside. And finally, the vineyard bore fruit and was ready for harvest. This world also has wine, and AI really likes it, so everyone eagerly harvested a huge amount of grapes. So the pressing girls made a machine upstairs that uses feet to crush grapes into juice. Hisaku was below to swap barrels. These grape juice barrels were carefully designed by the pressing girls to be completely leak-proof. It was AI's first time stepping on food, so she was clumsy, only Tia was bold. Just as Hisaku warned them to be careful not to fall, Tia and Leah bumped into each other and crashed hard. To move more rhythmically and avoid falling, everyone used the village pressing song and moved in time with it. Sure enough, the work went much smoother. After a hard day, they finally collected a bunch of barrels full of grape juice. Now they just need to wait for the yeast in the grape skins to ferment. Hisaku thought making 16 barrels might be a bit too much, but the pressing girls said they'd drink it all in a few days. This made Hisaku a bit scared, and went to ask, "What do you guys want?" Hisaku's life was happily going on, but over at Mr. Salamander's place, he was kneeling, begging the agriculture god for forgiveness. Like a drunk woman, how could he push an innocent soul to die in the forest, which is the place to punish sinners, and then come back asking for mercy? What a crappy situation. On top of that, he gave Hisaku a replica of the holy sword Grim to use. Even though it's just a farming tool form, its power is still unpredictable. No matter how he tried to justify it, that god just made things worse with every word. A normal person would have lost all their energy and died just by touching the spear. But thanks to the strong body granted to Hisaku, he has an incredible recovery ability. The more he spoke, the more he made the goddess of industry boil with rage. But the real issue is Hisaku carved the statue of the goddess of industry as an unrelated old man. Yet that god still got scolded badly. It turns out the goddess of industry is the daughter of that horse god, but he's a doting father, so he didn't dare argue and was punished to kneel there for 300 years to repent. Meanwhile, Down in the mortal world, Hisaku's village welcomed a new figure. It was a familiar scene and also a familiar person. It turned out to be Du's little sister, Flora. She knew her sister was being chased by Tia, so she followed her all the way here to look for news. Since she was familiar, Hisaku was polite and told her that since she was here, she could stay for a while before leaving. The first time Flora met her brother-in-law, she found Hisaku kind of weak, but no sooner had she said that than Kuzo glared at her fiercely. She immediately trembled and apologized. Seeing this, Du took the chance to flex that her husband was the owner of the Hellhound Pack and took down a mutant beast with a single move. Don't underestimate him. Hearing this, Flora immediately knelt to apologize for her disrespect, but Hisaku didn't hold a grudge, just felt a bit itchy. Wait, Kuzo's a wolf, not a dog? And he can spit fire? That's insanely badass. Kuzo got praised and instantly puffed up with pride. To make up for Kuzo's wandering ways, Flora, scared, treated her to a lavish meal that made her blush. She praised every dish and kept eating more. There were countless delicious dishes. This was her first time tasting such food. After hearing Hisaku's words, she immediately got an idea for research. After a few days, she happily returned home to study the recipe for miso soup. She came back a month later, and she brought a bunch of maids with her. The leader of the maid group was named Anand, and called Hikaru her master, leaving him dumbfounded. Always productive, Flora even brought a lactating cow as a gift for Hikaru. Now they could make butter and cream. Hikaru was overjoyed, literally glowing. Meanwhile, Tia, seeing she was the only Angel Tribe member here, felt increasingly weak and scared. She felt herself getting weaker and started worrying. A few days later, they brought some subordinates from the Angel Tribe and the Daga Tribe, and gifted Hisaku a regular chicken that only laid eggs and couldn't spit fire. The number of poultry kept growing. The village's level of civilization was rising thanks to the maids Flora brought along. The house, once messy, was now always clean, tidy, and well organized. But the people here only knew how to boil or roast food. They had no idea about fancy cooking, so Hisaku taught them the cooking methods he knew. The maids started getting interested in cooking, although sometimes their skills were a bit lacking. Tia brought 3 angels and assigned them the task of guarding the village. The lizard people handled the manual labor outside. Suddenly, the village population grew significantly, and Hisaku couldn't even remember how many people there were anymore. Plus, Leah brought back many stranded Ep tribe girls from outside, increasing the Ep tribe population considerably. A few days later, everyone was gathered, because Hisaku had something to say, naming the village. Now that the population was large, naming the village was essential. After many suggestions, the name Taiju Village was finalized, simply because there was a giant old tree in the middle of the village. Hisaku was appointed village chief. To celebrate the village's birth, everyone ate and drank heavily that night. Episode 7. From winter to summer, the population of Taiju Village increased a lot, yet the pace of everyone's life didn't really change, except the outside world was different. Suddenly, a Demon Kingdom envoy came wanting to meet Hisaku. The visitor was Bizo. This was Hisaku's first official duty as village chief, so he was extremely nervous. Representing the whole village, his attitude and behavior were crucial. Bizo brought a gift to prove the friendship between the two sides. As soon as he saw it, his eyes practically snacked it all up. He immediately reached out to catch it. But Bizo's main purpose here was to deliver a message from the Demon Lord to Hisaku. The Demon Lord wanted to meet Hisaku to discuss this village. This made him recall when Du said this place might be under the Demon Lord's control. So Hisaku thought if that's the case, for the villagers to keep living here, they might have to pay taxes. Hisaku wanted to first consult with Tia and Du temporarily, but seeing the trust in their eyes toward him, Hisaku resolved to take on the true responsibility of a village chief. So he proactively proposed to Bizo that his side would pay a 10% food tax annually to the Demon Lord in exchange for permission to live here. Just hearing that, Bizo was extremely surprised, making Hisaku nervous too. But once you've started, you have to finish. Both sides quickly signed the contract. Feeling a bit stiff, he gave Bizo a small gift as a token of goodwill. Taiju Village, paying taxes meant surrendering to the Demon Lord and accepting his protection. This exchange wasn't a loss at all. Plus, the conditions Hisaku proposed were very reasonable. Everything prioritized the village's welfare above all else. Not to mention the gift they received was a cure-all medicine. Du was very interested in it. Since his wife said so, Hisaku stopped worrying. After returning to the castle, Bizo reported everything that happened to the 4 heavenly kings. They were all shocked that Hisaku's village surrendered so easily. They suspected Hisaku's side had some deeper scheme, but Bizo didn't dare say a word, because the vampire princess and the destroyer angel were also there. It turned out that despite their harmless appearance, Du and Tia's true identities were no joke. They were big names with reputations that made anyone nervous just hearing them. Even the EP race and Hell Wolves happily ran up to Hisaku. To outsiders, he was a terrifying figure. What scared Bizo more was that the ones who brought him to meet Hisaku were assassin angels. That explained why they wore full body armor, a ridiculously powerful force. So voluntarily joining the Demon Lord's army, Bizo had no reason to refuse. His purpose was only to establish friendly relations. He didn't want Taiju village as an enemy, nor did he ever hope the village would surrender to the Demon Lord's army. On top of that, Hisaku gave gifts that amazed everyone. One of the 4 heavenly kings opened the gift and couldn't resist tasting some apples Hisaku gave. The result? They were insanely delicious. But what Bizo cared about most was the cloth Hisaku used to wrap the gift, woven from baby demon queen spider silk, a monster rivaling the previous demon lord. As soon as he heard that, John Dan demanded to resign again. Damn, seeing the great-grandmother. Yet just the other day in Taiju, they welcomed a messenger from the Demon Lord. The next day, they received a genuine dragon-loving nobleman, no impurities. He brought a small gift, hoping Hisaku would accept it. The gift was a holy sword that looked extremely luxurious. And Dorame came this time simply to greet the neighboring village. Dorame lived on the mountain to the west, not far from here. Saying not far, but it was actually freaking far. To make conversation easier, Dorame transformed into human form, because being a dragon, always bowing and crawling around looked way too lame. Hisaku saw Kua and noticed Dozame carefully choosing words as if afraid to offend him, which confused Hisaku a lot. After tasting the food here, Dozame was completely enchanted and stubbornly refused to go back home, wanting to stay here instead. But his close attendants wouldn't allow it because Dozame's mission was extremely important. Slacking off would get him scolded immediately. After much coaxing, Dozame finally agreed to return after this incident. Hisaku then thought the village should find a way to better receive visiting guests in the future. Suddenly, everything became too complicated, making him uncomfortable. Since that day, Hisaku thought a lot. He decided to build a guest house just big enough for 4 people to sit. But Leah thinks that's too few, because to reach the village, they have to cross many mountains and a dangerous forest since the Demon Lord's messenger and Dozame are nearby, so they sent fewer people this time. Normally, the messenger groups are much larger, about 30 people or even more. After finalizing, the 7 ladies immediately started organizing. Maria's group will be responsible for patrolling around the village. If they encounter strangers, they must escort them to the village gate, and Jabaton will ring the bell to announce guests have arrived, just in case there are imposters pretending to be visitors. Then the welcoming team will include Hisaku, Dutia, and some from the Unicorn clan, forming a very formidable reception force. No one would dare plot a rebellion. Flora was assigned to stay alert at night when guests arrive because the vampire clan can easily stay awake for several consecutive nights. After everything was set, the first guest group arrived earlier than expected, a group of beastmen from Howling Village in the eastern mountain range. Their leader is GOP. This time, Hisaku stayed silent even though he had spoken up before. Let the wife handle this, her smile looks too dangerous. Du stepped forward to greet the group and asked if they really were only this few. As soon as GOP said yes, Du sneered and demanded to silence the ones hiding behind the bushes. Seeing they couldn't hide anymore, the whole group was escorted out by Kudo. Du warned them not to act recklessly and then led them to the guest house. Outwardly, he smiled and welcomed them, but right after they left, he locked the doors, trapping them inside the room. Tia reminded Hisaku that if they came here to make friends, they would bring gifts, not arrive empty-handed. Their true purpose here was still unknown, so Tia wanted to keep an eye on things. But if they didn't come in the usual way, they couldn't be properly received. The usual way would mean their treatment would also be downgraded. The food prepared for them was somewhat plain compared to Dohimi. Both Tia and Du felt that those who bring gifts and those who don't must be treated differently. Hisaku didn't dare argue with his wife and felt a bit sorry but let it slide. Tia advised him to get used to it. Everyone opposed the grape wine invitation, but Hisaku wouldn't budge, so they compromised with 2 cups per person, which was more than enough. While GOP's group was busy eating and drinking to the point of forgetting the way back, Hisaku approached to ask their real purpose for coming this time. GOP revealed that Howling Village was established 500 years ago. Most residents are beastmen. The villagers mainly live by hunting and mining. They usually trade with the human village across the mountains, but recently, many incidents have caused trade to stall. So, while searching for new trade partners, the group came to Taiju village. They learned about this village from one of the Demon Lord's subordinates. Tia also took advantage of their drunken state to extract more information. Confirming that GOP's group had no ill intentions, Hisaku agreed to trade with them. It was called trading, but it was really just exchanging goods. Their village doesn't have currency. Reaching Taiju village is already very difficult for them. Bringing extra goods is even harder, so GOP proposed that Hisaku's village could retrieve goods directly from their side. Thinking of the Kuzo who can pull carts and are familiar with the forest terrain, Hisaku didn't hesitate. The goods Howling Village offered were mainly minerals like silverware, glassware, ironware, and all kinds of items Hisaku needed at the moment. In return, Taiju village would provide them with vegetables. Before leaving, GOP apologized for arriving empty-handed. Their village lacks this kind of communication, so they only realized yesterday the significance of bringing gifts. Their village is poor, so they have nothing valuable to offer. Hisaku didn't take it to heart. A few days later, Tia led a group carrying goods to Howling Village for trade. Dozaime agreed to transport them in exchange for a barrel of premium grape wine. Thanks to Dozaime, the group reached Howling Village in just one day. A few days later, Tia's group returned. It turned out their food was warmly welcomed in Howling Village and sold out quickly. Even Dojami's barrel of grape wine was sold. Feeling sorry, Hisaku gifted him another barrel. Howling Village had one request, to send 20 fresh young girls from their village to live in Taiju. But since Howling Village was short on men, Hisaku demanded they also bring 3 young men before he agreed. Howling Village agreed. A few days later, 20 Beastmen girls arrived and became residents of Taiju Village. The leader is Sina. The 3 young guys Hisaku asked for turned out to be kids not even of age yet. But hey, better than nothing. The future revival of the EP tribe depends on these kids. Episode 8. The new immigrants from Howling Village will be guided by Giamoli to adapt to village life. The young ladies quickly got used to life in the village. The only issue is they faint quite a lot whenever they see Jabuton. But Hisaku just accepts it. He says you get used to seeing it often, though he doesn't really know what to do. Seeing everyone around can use magic. Hisaku suddenly noticed that, as the village chief, he's the only one without any magic power in hand. Even Jabuton and Kuzo somewhat know how to spew fire loudly. Hisaku could only clap awkwardly and laugh. Suddenly, a little slime that only eats poop also knows how to breathe fire and run up to scare him, leaving him stunned. But Hisaku gave up and accepted that he's just an ordinary person. He just focuses on the things he can do. While picking apples, suddenly there was an earthquake. Maria quickly ran over to report that 2 stinky beasts were fighting north of the forest. Just a snake and a bear fighting, yet it caused such tremors. Looks like they have to deal with it quickly or it'll affect the village. But if they intervene and get beaten by those 2 stinky beasts, that'd be the end of them, so Hisaku planned to butcher those 2. Maria took Hisaku flying to the battlefield, then flew low following his instructions. Just one move and the entire village will have bear meat to eat tonight, more than enough for everyone. Looking back, those beasts were huge, so the meat was plentiful. Hisaku cooked the bear meat in stew with wine, but it was too fishy to eat. Tried making crispy fried snake meat. Luckily it turned out delicious. The crispy fried chicken made everyone obsessed, but something was still missing, so Hisaku asked Flo Ra to make a disinfectant to experiment with some new seasonings. As soon as Hisaku described it, Flo Ra immediately gave him a pinkish substance, advertising that just one dose would wipe out microbes straight to the afterlife. But Hisaku needed something milder. Flora had that too. While at it, he checked on her progress making miso soup, but things weren't looking good. Her miserable attempts had been fixed 3 times already. Flora didn't give up though, and promised not to blow anything up. Then Hisaku started making mayonnaise to go with the crispy fried snake meat. Sure enough, combined with mayonnaise, this dish was on a whole new level. Not only that, he also guided Flora to make miso soup with soybean sauce. But the process needed koji mushrooms and took several months, so both had to be patient for the soybeans to ferment in the vat. Then Du came looking for them. Turns out they had visitors to the village. This time, it was envoys from the dwarf tribe led by a man named Donovan. They came because they heard the village's grape wine was very good. Hisaku agreed immediately, but Du and Tia knew the wine was precious and couldn't be so generous forever. Donovan understood that too, so of course they didn't come empty-handed. Though the dwarves had no money, they possessed very advanced technology. They risked their lives to come here to ask for some vegetables and crops from the village. In exchange, they would teach the village techniques to make wine from other vegetables. This condition immediately caught Tia and Du's attention, so Donovan's group immediately got to work making wine. It was painstaking like scientific research. The quality was top-notch, but stronger than the usual grape wine they drank. Hisaku agreed to let Donovan's group stay in the village to continue winemaking. Since there was new wine, the village held a party to welcome the beastmen and dwarves joining the village. Another night of eating and drinking to the point of forgetting the way home. The wine made by the dwarves was truly high quality. Everyone loved it. Donovan thanked Hisaku for accepting them, but this was also beneficial for Taiju Village. The village was a bit short on men. If adult men immigrated here, it would help a lot. So Hisaku whispered into Donovan's ear that if he felt attracted to any of the girls here, just let him know, and he'd play matchmaker. Just don't fall for my wife, that's all. But Donovan wasn't the marrying type. Everyone here was too young compared to him. Also, his taste is a bit unique, so he politely declined. The huge cultural gap instantly crushed Hisaku's hope. The next morning, while Hisaku was casually carrying the village flag, a dragon suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Fearing danger to the village, Hisaku immediately drew his sword. Before he could even throw it, Dohaime suddenly charged in and knocked that baby dragon off the screen. Luckily, Dojaime showed up just in time, or tonight the village would have had pan-fried dragon meat. Before he could figure out what was going on, another pure white baby dragon appeared, radiating deadly intent, so Hisaku threw his sword at it. Fortunately, Dohaime's subordinates arrived to stop him, or the whole dragon clan would have been doomed. Rare and reckless. Rare equals power, right guys? It turned out they were Dojami's wife and daughter. Dojami often skipped work and snuck off to the village, making his wife suspect he had a mistress, so she followed him here. On top of that, he frequently took treasures from the vault. Who wouldn't think he's keeping a mistress? That level of sneaky is actually mild. Dojimi came here so often, the village even had a house just for him. Whenever he got drunk, he'd be too wasted to go home. Now the suspicion was confirmed. No matter what, Dojimi was sulking, so there's no point in explaining. Hisaku also apologized for the intense atmosphere earlier. He thought they wanted trouble, but since the Dragon Clan was mostly at fault, they accepted Hisaku's apology and apologized too for nearly burning down his village without checking first. With the misunderstanding cleared, Hisaku excused himself. Only the dragon family stayed behind to discuss things. The wife and daughter, having witnessed Hisaku's power, knew better than to cause trouble. The village protector's strength surpasses even that of the dragons. The wife avoided that spear only because Rabusan pulled her back. Otherwise, she'd be fried dragon meat too. Because this village is crucial, the daughter was assigned the task of living here for a while. They can't ignore that power. If they can't control it, they must at least steer it toward the Dragon Clan. Mommy meant for Jadi to seduce Hisaku and bring him over to her side. Under his mother's pressure, Jadi reluctantly agreed, so the Taiju village gained another resident. Everyone panicked when a Dragon Clan member suddenly appeared. The Dragon Clan's standards differ from other species, so even the mildest instincts can lead to village destruction. A single sneeze can cause an explosion, so assigning tasks is impossible. Hisaku planned to let her relax to minimize damage to facilities, but Dojimi had warned against letting her slack off, giving Hisaku a headache. But Jadi scared off both cows and chickens. No one dares lay eggs anymore. If this keeps up, it's bad news. Knowing the Dragon Clan has knowledge and experience, Hisaku assigned her to handle the village's diplomacy. She scared Biza so much he didn't dare make a peep. Jadi agreed to everything. Reporting back, her gang was overpowered but dared not fight, so Biza came up with a plan: send his daughter, Flo Gem, to investigate. She was very confident in her magic, but as soon as she entered the village, Jadi greeted her, making Flo Gem too nervous to roam the flower fields, wondering why a dragon was farming vegetables and raising fish. When Jadi had to leave halfway, she left Flo Gem to explore alone. The more she learned, the more she felt, this is hopeless, it's beyond saving. While compiling the village's strength stats and curious about the mysterious chief, Flo Gem was spotted by Hisaku but ignored him. Returning to the village, she learned Hisaku was the chief and turned pale. Things just got a lot worse for her pride. After that, every time she saw Hisaku, she completely froze up. In episode 9, the slimes assigned to clean bathrooms and water lines started multiplying on their own, showing countless colors no one could predict. Seeing they were harmless, Hisaku ignored them, but a single slime drank an entire barrel of wine, a shock to all the booze lovers. And for the first time, a trial was held to judge a slime. Everyone planned to burn the little slime who didn't get it, but Hisaku, 0 points for that, just locked it up for now. Calm down, everyone. Thanks to Flower Gems stepping up to rescue, there was punishment, but slime doesn't have the brain to feel remorse. So the little slime was acquitted and even appeared to join everyone for a meal. Having a few cute pets like that is nice, but too many aren't good. Summer here isn't harsh, but autumn is the most comfortable season, with cool eyes and a pleasant atmosphere making farm work easier. And autumn is perfect for hot pot, everyone gathering around the pot, eating and having a blast. Hisaku casually blurted out a craving for seafood, leaving everyone stunned. Turns out nobody in this world knows what seafood is, so Hisaku explained it to them. The more she explained, the more confusing it got, but Dew and Flora immediately started investigating. The others found it all weird dishes. Only Flower Gem was normal because she's a regular human, not some unusual species. Since Hisaku craved seafood, she knew there was a bustling market town in the Demon Kingdom's territory that specialized in seafood. If they went a little south from this forest, maybe they'd find what Hisaku wanted. Hearing this, Jadi immediately volunteered to go buy it. Flower Gem insisted on going too, saying, "Let's do it now." She rode Jadi and set off immediately. As expected, when food is involved, everyone gets pumped and didn't return until 3 days later. They even brought Michael, the head of the merchant guild in Sasato Town of the Demon Kingdom. Michael brought tons of famous seafood from Sasato Town. The seaweed Hisaku wanted was usually thrown away because they didn't know how to prepare it, but since Hisaku needed it, they gladly retrieved and dried it again for delivery. But Michael didn't come just for that. He had 3 goals. First, to greet the village chief Taiju, who was Hisaku. Second, to propose a long-term cooperation deal. Third, if possible, he wanted their guild to become the authorized merchants here, meaning managing all trading between here and outside. Michael was straightforward, no beating around the bush to avoid misunderstandings, gaining some goodwill. Many wanted the chance to trade with this village. Michael knew that, so he only dared to say, if the opportunity arises, but he never missed any chances. After a full day of discussion, Michael maintained his professional demeanor until the very end. Hisaku entrusted Dew with this deal. Tia also found him trustworthy. On the way back, Michael glanced back at Taiju village once more and smiled, but deep down, he was scared out of his mind. 3 days ago, while busy and disheveled, Jotty and Flower Gem came to him with a hunch this was a huge deal. And sure enough, his hunch was always right. Knowing it was Flower Gem, Michael broke into a cold sweat. Had he chased her away earlier, he'd be doomed. Then, hearing Jotty's name, Michael's face changed. This guy was trouble. Turns out, it was ancestral intuition, warning him, or else he'd be doomed. Within a minute, Michael changed his attitude completely. He'd been worried this was a ridiculous deal that would cost him a fortune, but seeing the agricultural products stacked by Taiju Village, Michael immediately accepted the two girls' proposal. As soon as he finished speaking, Michael and a half-dragon flew straight to Taiju Village. He'd never met so many big shots in his life. He was so scared he wanted to change pants 10 times. Just when he thought he finally met normal people, Du stepped forward. Then Jotty scolded him, but in the end, he survived and returned. And the trade went perfectly. The whole village finally had seafood to eat. Not a single peaceful day passed. The next morning, another dragon came looking for Hisaku, but unlike Jotty's family, this little dragon breathed fire, challenging them outright. So Hisaku stopped holding back and threw a spear hard. The first throw missed, but the second hit dead on. Even defeated, this little dragon smiled brightly. Then Du Jaime appeared. Turns out this person is his older sister, the ancient dragon Hakugen, who came because she heard her niece Jotty was married to the village chief. She refused to accept her niece marrying first, and wanted to see how strong her niece's husband really was. Indeed, he was strong. Hisaku didn't understand what Du was about, but when he heard this, he was ready for action immediately. But Du Jaime had to hurriedly explain that it was just something he said while drunk, with no real meaning behind it. Still, no matter what was said, destroying and threatening the village was unacceptable, so Hisaku ordered Hakuzen to fix the damage before entering the village. By the time it was done, it was already late evening, so Hazuken had dinner with the villagers. The food was so good she sulked because Doraemon only just told her now, always hiding the delicious food for himself. Hearing that her uncle caused trouble, Roddy immediately ran to apologize to Hisaku, but he didn't hold a grudge after being fed well. Hakuzen immediately wanted to try the games Hisaku came up with. In other words, a straightforward face. And the dragon tribe's fighting spirit was insanely high. No one was willing to back down. Playing normally was boring. This wasn't an AI game. Losers had to strip to accept defeat. Hisaku went from being full of confidence to full of self-doubt. He lost completely, left with only his underwear. On the final round, he wanted to go big, and AI really went all out, stripped completely. Since then, Hakuzen stayed at Taiju Village, living off others. She could do anything but was lazy to the extreme, so AI refused every request. You can't support a freeloader who just sits around. So Hisaku assigned her the task of teaching the village kids math and composition, a skill absolutely essential in life. A few days later, the Lamia tribe suddenly appeared, bringing minerals to surrender to Hisaku. This confused him until he learned Jabuton and the Kuzo had invaded surrounding tribes to expand territory. The Lamia had no place left to hide and voluntarily surrendered to Hisaku, begging for a way to survive. Knowing the situation, Hisaku immediately apologized to the Lamia and promised to control his pets properly, then gave the Lamia the village's farm produce in exchange for their minerals. Thus, trade between the two villages was established. Taiju Village increasingly formed alliances with many others. Meanwhile, in the Demon Kingdom castle, the four heavenly kings worried because Hisaku suddenly appeared in Taiju Village. But the Demon King didn't care much. Zihai was more concerned his daughter didn't greet him today. Oh, that hurt deeply. And last night, the princess came up with a plan that sounded like a disaster waiting to happen. She demanded sending troops to rescue Fo Lao Rem in episode 10. The princess, influenced by others, believed Tai Du was building military forces and holding Flo Gem hostage, so she deployed troops to attack the village to rescue Flo Gem. Meanwhile, the unwilling victim was busy handling village affairs, overwhelmed with work. Suddenly, a father showed up late at night, and no one knew why. It turned out he came to report that the Demon King's princess was mobilizing troops to start a war. The main cause was Flo Gem, who didn't understand a thing. What's this sudden drama? Things are getting way too big. So he summarized the situation for Flo Gem. It turned out the princess was manipulated by 3 idiot nobles. They filled her head with nonsense. When they learned the princess planned to attack Tai Du, Flo Gem couldn't hold back and blurted out, "What the hell did these idiots eat to be this dumb?" She had already detailed the village's military system thoroughly. They can't fight, so why even try? But it was too absurd, so the idiots didn't believe it. Zigger explained it to the Demon King, but he was a simp, so he let the princess do whatever she wanted. But if Flo Gem tried to convince them herself, they'd think she had turned into a threat against the Demon Kingdom. Flo Gem's job now was to stop the princess's attack tomorrow with 300 troops. She had to get the AI in the village to step in and stop them, then crush them so they'd give up on war. But if Johnny and Hakuzen found out, the Demon King's princess might cause the whole Demon Kingdom to collapse. So no village force could be used, but they still had to make the princess realize the power gap. If she's smart, she'll retreat on her own. so the only option was to rely on the Lamia. Just 3 of them scared the Demon Kingdom soldiers into begging for mercy. The ease of it made the Lamia girls confused. If it's that easy, then getting paid 10 crates of apples is a bit much. Then capturing the 3 nobles from the Demon King's kingdom counts as an achievement. That way, receiving 10 crates of apples feels less guilty. So the trio of idiots persuaded that princess to immigrate into Tai-Du village. Although they resisted strongly, the Flow Gem here said so. They didn't dare to fight back since they were just scared stiff by the Lamia tribe. No guts left to resist anymore. So the 3 were assigned under Fala Rame's command. As for the princess, due to her noble status, she was taken here but still kept her throne. Flow Gem understood her concern for herself, so didn't make her work. But Hisaku didn't care much, just acted like she didn't exist. Although it was a bit off, Hisaku didn't understand much anyway, so let Flow Gem decide everything and slipped off to work the fields. She had to remind them all to work hard, then she'd forgive what just happened. But they must not let anyone else in the village know about their plan to attack, so it's best to keep their identities secret, especially the princess, since she can't get special treatment. Flow Gem will call her Juji. Juji didn't feel any problem and even wanted to tour the village voluntarily. After a brief introduction to the village's important spots and meeting everyone, the Jujita group quickly got familiar with everyone until they met Jadi. Juji wasn't scared at all, even a bit excited because she made a new friend. Unfortunately, those 3 noble girls didn't like staying here at all. They felt this countryside place wasn't worthy of them, so they tried sneaking out to escape. That was the plan, but it never succeeded once. They ran into the Kuzo gang in Rabuton, so they gave up on escaping. They even worked very hard after that. Juji not only got to play with hellhounds but also experienced a life she never imagined. This place was completely different from the royal capital. She felt extremely ashamed for nearly causing war to this peaceful village due to her ignorance. Coming here really opened Juji's eyes, especially about the existence of dragons. She thought dragons were only in novels. Even though Flow Gem warned many times, and surely the Demon King tried to stop her, Susie still stubbornly refused to listen, all because Flow Gem suddenly disappeared from the kingdom. Moreover, hearing that she was taken hostage made Juji very worried. They were childhood friends, but growing up, Flow Gem kept calling Juji princess, which made Juji quite unhappy. Pouting, Juji forced Flow Gem to promise not to call her that anymore. Noble girls quickly adapted to village life. Just then, Du appeared. She had been acting like a kid all day. No one understood why she couldn't transform back suddenly, but no one cared much. Her magic would recover soon. In the following days, besides office work, Juji's group also helped with harvesting vegetables and learning farming. The Beast children taught them. Although tiring, the work seemed fun. They learned a lot in this village. But finally, the day came to return to the royal capital. Before leaving, Sena gave Juji lots of cookies to eat on the way. But only Juji went back. The 3 noble girls refused to return. They wanted to stay and help Flow Gem with office work. After much persuasion, only Juji returned. After all, she's a princess. Staying away from the royal capital too long isn't good. After returning, Juji seriously started caring about her sister and diplomacy. This made the Demon King worried, thinking his daughter had a crush on some kid. Baiser was speechless. Not long after Juji left, the village began harvesting before winter. The yield was massive. The warehouse couldn't hold anymore, so Jadi suggested they share some with her father. Hakuzan also took the chance to ask for some for his parents. Turns out, Hakuzan's parents were also famous violent dragons. After bringing some crops back to her parents, Jadi also conveniently gave Michael a little bit. So she helped Michael take down the sea monster and got a ton of seafood as a reward. After bringing crops to his parents, Hakuzan also brought back some new immigrants. Their representatives are the Dak EP, another species of Tia. Seeing that the school was also struggling, Hisaku immediately took them in, but housing had to be arranged quickly because winter was coming. The Dak EP are proud of their hunting skills, but in this forest, it's almost useless. When he saw Hisaku learning pottery, the family voluntarily went to find high-quality clay for him. Sure enough, they found some, then got news that the scout team discovered a labyrinth in the forest. The whole village immediately formed a small army to explore the labyrinth. Very quickly, the group returned, and according to Leah's report, they must destroy this labyrinth. They found blood-sucking snakes inside, and their meat is senili, delicious when eaten in winter. Especially, it's great for restoring vitality and boosting fertility. That's the reason, haha. But soon, autumn passed quickly. Recently, Du suddenly fell ill and was bedridden. The medicine expert also got sick, making everyone very worried. Seeing Hisaku worried about her, Du comforted him. But after examining the illness, the symptoms were similar to those of people in Howling Village. And then those people got great news. Episode 11, no less. Today was another peaceful and lively morning. Hisaku's day started with waking up when the sun was already high. He did some basic exercises and then got to work in the fields. And Du's pregnancy is 100% confirmed. Every time he sees his wife, Hisaku asks about her health. It even annoyed her sometimes. When the village found out Du was pregnant, they were shocked. Turns out, the reason she couldn't transform was because of the baby in her belly. Only Du remained calm facing this situation. She even comforted everyone, saying not to worry about her. Hisaku was very worried and didn't want his wife working alone, but Du didn't like him hovering over her, so Hisaku continued with his day's work. He took a tour of the kitchen to see how Anne's team was doing. The reason he didn't wake up early was because Anne's team insisted on getting up before him, so he purposely woke up late so they could sleep earlier. If there was a problem, Anne would report it to Hisaku, but it was mostly nonsense, like Lamb sneaking into the liquor barrel and drinking it dry. Then it was mealtime. Because there were many people, they split it into 3 rounds. Hisaku, Tia, and Follow Ra ate first, then the maids and the EP. The 3rd round was for those who didn't manage to eat in the first 2 rounds. Hakizan sometimes didn't even bother to eat or sleep, lying around until afternoon. Mazia's scout team also reported in the morning, usually while Hisaku was eating, but it was mostly trivial stuff. Seeing the mafia act serious on missions, but live in total chaos in daily life. They rely on others to do everything for them before things get done properly, but that kind of monkey business is enough. After breakfast, Hisaku went back to check the fields and watered the plants with his multi-purpose farming tool. Because the fields were vast, by the time watering was done, it was already lunchtime. Anne's team had prepared food so they could eat right in the fields. People in this world don't have the concept of lunch, so they were surprised when Hisaku wanted to eat lunch. The EP even dared not eat breakfast for fear of running out of food. Hisaku had to persuade them a lot before they ate properly. Since becoming village chief, all big and small tasks fall to Hisaku. After lunch, he continued working. Hisaku's duties include managing land and planting new crops. Until now, they only grew food, so today he wanted to try planting flowers to decorate village life. He also made some small wooden items on request from villagers. Sometimes he would go watch military training, though he felt it wasn't really necessary. He wanted to be prepared for any surprises, and Anne's group also insisted, so he agreed. Well, just some exercise to stay healthy. But no matter what discipline he learns with Hisaku, it's always tough. When the sun sets, it's dinner time. Dinner is always changed based on the Anne group's mood. Occasionally, they receive letters from Juji, mostly asking for foods she wants to eat. Then he takes a bath. After bathing, it's relaxation time. That said, this is actually when Hisaku feels the most tense, because the others always watch him. From now on, somehow, he still feels monitored inside the room. Just one shout and a bunch of heads pop out, all worrying about his safety. So they keep a 24/7 watch on him, which leaves him speechless. And just like that, another exhausting day ends. The next morning, he visits the village's brewery. Donovan's group is still working day and night to craft even more delicious types of alcohol. The dwarves take brewing very seriously and rarely ever get drunk. Their standards for alcohol are very high and meticulous, always aiming to create the best. The dwarves want to create a type of alcohol that costs triple the current agricultural output in the village. While pondering how to do that, Sina suddenly reports a very strange person has appeared. This person just showed up in the village and even bowed before the agricultural god statue, which made Hisaku very curious. When Du appeared, everything became clear. It turns out he was the progenitor of the vampire clan, and bees came to visit upon hearing Du was pregnant. Normally, vampires increase their family through blood contracts, but only Du is truly pregnant, so he was very worried, and the child in Du's womb is truly a treasure of the vampire clan. The vampire clan ancestor is over 4,000 years old, but still looks very young. Originally, he just planned to sneak in and leave, but he was drawn to the creation god statue under the tree and unconsciously knelt to worship it. Hisaku wondered if he had ever met God. Sure enough, but only once, right after he was born. But since his memories were erased, he forgot quite a bit, only remembering what the creation god said, not the exact appearance. He tried hard to recreate the image of the creator god but still couldn't match Hisaku's version perfectly. Seeing that his wife's ancestor liked it, Hisaku carved one and gave it to him. Otherwise, he'd complain all day. Thought the progenitor would be hard to approach, but he was friendlier than Hisaku expected. After receiving Hisaku's statue gift, the progenitor displayed it in the most sacred church of the creator god's followers, and wanted every church branch to have one like it, venerating Hisaku's name and the Taiju village forever. Forgot to mention, the progenitor also gifted Du a very beautiful piano. It was placed in the village's large dining hall. The noblewomen of the Demon King's kingdom loved it, and wanted to try playing, but didn't dare touch it for fear of damaging Du's property, so they asked Hisaku. He didn't quite understand, but still gave them one to practice on. Indeed, the one the progenitor gave Du looked much more luxurious. Since getting the piano, everyone eagerly practiced, though night practice made him a bit restless. Still, they practiced. The last summer of 12 seasons finally arrived. Vegetables and fruit soaked up sunlight, and grew more vibrant. Life in the village continued peacefully as usual. Today, Hisaku was working in the fields when Du came to find him, eating lunch while chatting. Hisaku was famous for worrying too much. Others were the same. Now even when Du wants to move around, no one lets her. But Du feels she can still walk, so she wants to stroll and look around. Seeing his wife made Hisaku curious about what having a child in the womb would be like, so he asked people around and got various answers. Everyone was eager to meet the child as soon as possible. Only Du remained calm and a bit sad because she had to avoid alcohol. Seeing this wasn't good, everyone decided to sell off all the alcohol, so Du wouldn't drink anymore. Reluctant, everyone resolved to quit drinking alongside Du until she gave birth. Hisaku was speechless too. He agreed to sell but wouldn't let anyone drink anymore. That alcohol would be aged until Du gave birth. That way, it would only get better and more fragrant. This made the dwarves very sad, so Hisaku had to keep comforting them until they stopped sulking and got back to enthusiastically brewing sake. Since it was summer, everyone feared the heat. It was also almost time for Du to give birth. Afraid that Du felt hot and uncomfortable, everyone brought their most precious treasures to him. Before long, the entire room was filled with gifts from everyone, making Du very happy to be so loved. Just as night fell, Du began to go into labor. The whole village became busier than ever. Zaku got flustered and didn't know what to do. The only option was to sit back at the tree hollow where he first arrived and reflect on everything. By dawn, Du had given birth to his child. Holding his child for the first time, Hisaku was flustered and didn't know what to do, panicking like a kid, suddenly becoming a father. This made Hisaku very happy and determined to raise this child well. 1 week after Du gave birth, the child was named Afia. Their race was half vampire. But right now, they were no different from ordinary humans. Everyone would swarm around the baby at the slightest chance. Reflecting on the journey so far, Hisaku felt deeply grateful. To repay the gifts given to his son, Hisaku decided to give each person a coin. Its use was as simple as currency. Sooner or later, money has to be used. He taught everyone how to use currency but warned that if it was given out recklessly, things would get chaotic. So first, each person would get 3 coins, and those who did good work would earn more. Coins were all carved by his own hand, so there was no way to counterfeit them. Everyone used the coins in their own way. Even the Kuzo gang wanted to use them, but sometimes, the coins were used in ridiculously twisted ways. Finally, the celebration for Afia's birth arrived. Since Du just gave birth, he couldn't drink sake. At the party, the Donovan group gifted everyone a large barrel of sake, so they ate and drank until they were completely wasted. All the friends around were invited, but since Du was breastfeeding, he couldn't drink, so Donovan wanted to brew a barrel of sake to age until Afia turned 1 year old. The flavor would definitely be delicious. Upon hearing Du had given birth, everyone enthusiastically prepared gifts. Life in Taidu village continued on, and the population kept growing.